In this video, we'll be looking at the opening fight from Creed, written by Ryan Coogler and Covington. First, we're going to look at what was actually on the page. Then we're going to compare it to the final film. Finally, I'll give you my thoughts on how this action would read today for a modern reader in a screenplay competition or studio coverage or just a coverage company in general. But let's start with the script. Okay, this is how the page actually looks in the September 30th, 2014 draft of the script for Creed. Interior Ring Fight Club Bar, Tijuana, Mexico. Adonis prances around the ring, avoiding Flores, who is struggling to make contact and growing tired. Flores corners Adonis up against the ropes, and after missing a few jabs, wham! He ducks into Adonis and lands a pretty deliberate headbutt above his left eye, opening a deep gash. As Adonis tries to recover, wham! Wham! He lands two bone-crushing hooks to the gut. Adonis takes an airless breath and stumbles back to the middle of the ring, wiping blood from the gash as the bell sounds. Adonis heads to the corner, where a waitress, 40s, puts a stool down. He sits, and she squirts water into his mouth. The bell for round 3 sounds. He starts towards Flores, with more bounce in his stance. Flores takes a swing at his head, and Adonis evades. Flores swings again, and again, even harder, and Adonis ducks both, and then crushes a left uppercut into Flores' chin, followed by a flurry of alternating punches that send Flores crashing to the mat, unconscious. The ref flies in waving, and Adonis spits his mouthpiece out and heads to the corner. Ref, in Spanish, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Adonis looks on and starts biting at his glove to take it off. The ref walks over and pulls $500 out of his pocket, hands it to Adonis right there. Okay, that's the screenplay for Creed. A few things to note. This is very detailed. Each punch is choreographed. This fight is choreographed more than I would expect to see in a fight sequence. But it's doing a lot of character work. It's showing that Adonis is an amateur. He's letting himself take these cheap punches. He's letting himself get headbutted and opening a gash. The last thing you want is a bleeding gash on your head when you're boxing. So at the very first fight, we're establishing that this guy, Adonis, is not a seasoned fighter. He's not his father. But when he gets himself composed and he comes back out to start the next round, to start round 3, he's all business. And he's like, fuck this guy. This thing's over. And real quick, lays him out because that's his potential. This scene is showing you what Adonis's potential is, but it's also showing you his weakness, his flaw, his arrogance. And that's going to carry through all 3 of the Creed films, is how arrogant he is and what he needs to overcome in order to feel like he's not in the shadow of his father. All of this is being done on the page. But is it what happens in the film? Let's look at the film. The script starts in the middle of a round, in the middle of round 2. The film starts before the fight. This is round 1, okay? And we're staying with the crowd. We're not in the middle of the ring. We're actually, our perspective is distant. It's away from the action. And so the fight starts, and they're trading jabs. They're kind of dancing around each other, but it's not this furious fit of blows as it is in the script. We stay outside of the ring. The other fighter misses a jab, and Adonis just unleashes hell on him and just pounds him. And then a hard hit knocks him the fuck out. And he's counted out, and the guy is out. No third round, no headbutt, no cut above the eye, none of that stuff. Adonis doesn't spit his mouthpiece out. He bites at his glove to take his glove off. So that's the difference in the film. So what does that tell you about how the film went from script to screen? In the film version, we lose some of that reckless arrogance that gets Adonis injured. We lose some of that wild nature, and we go straight to the power, but an arrogant sense of power, right? So we're keeping the character trait of arrogance, but now it's not something that's going to get him injured. He thinks he's better than everybody, right? And this is going to come back later in the film where all of a sudden he's not fighting these small little fights in Mexico anymore. He's not proving anything to anybody. And that arrogance is going to become his weakness. So it's still there, it's still in the script, it's still in the story, but it's not in the fight. And when you compare the fight choreography, how detailed it is in the screenplay versus what you see on screen, it's a really good lesson for writers because the script made the fight about character. The film kept that tone. The film kept the essence of that scene, even though it completely changed it. So now let's look at modern reader expectation to see how a competition reader would have judged Coogler and Covington's words on the page. So I've gone ahead and I've put the screenplay into Final Draft 13 so that I could show you what I think readers would bump against in this draft. Let me start off by saying that even by today's standards, this screenplay, this wording, these action blocks would still read as very exciting, and I don't think that the writer would be penalized too much by these small things. But these are notes. If you're a writer, these are notes that you would get if you were to turn this in to competition or turn this into coverage. First of all, these action blocks are way too cluttered. White space is a big deal in current reading. Reader fatigue and eye flowing down the page is a really big deal for getting check boxes. You lose points by having action blocks that are more than 2 or 3 lines, really. It seems silly, but it is what it is. So if you're not Coogler, then you got to do what the industry wants you to do. Here's how I would rewrite it for competition. Adonis prances around the ring, avoiding Flores, who is struggling to make contact and growing tired. Okay, I'm just going to make it another action block here. Flores corners Adonis up against the ropes, and after missing a few jabs, here is where I would put wham on its own line. He ducks into Adonis and lands a pretty deliberate headbutt. I think that's one word. Above his left eye, opening a deep gash. As Adonis tries to recover, then I do another one of these. Wham, wham. Flores lands 2 bone-crushing hooks to the gut. Adonis takes an airless breath and stumbles back to the middle of the ring, wiping blood from the gash as the bell sounds. Adonis heads to the corner, and then I'd probably even do this and make it a different slug line so that we're in the middle of the ring and now we're in the corner. Split up the geography. Adonis heads to the corner where a waitress, 40, maybe you're going to get dinged for not describing the waitress enough. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just saying this is something that might get flagged. Adonis heads to the corner where a waitress puts a stool down. He sits and squirts water into his mouth. The bell for round 3 starts. And here I'll probably put middle of the ring. Adonis starts towards Flores with more bounce in his stance. Flores takes a swing at his head and Adonis evades. Flores swings again and again, even harder, and Adonis ducks both and then crushes. Okay, this is a lot. This is dense. There's a lot going on here. And so I would probably break this up. Flores takes a swing at his head. Short sentences. Adonis evades. Flores swings again. And again. Even harder. These tiny little sentences. Then, next beat of action. Adonis ducks. And then crushes a left uppercut into Flores' chin, followed by a flurry of alternating punches that send Flores crashing to the mat. Unconscious. And you know what? I'd probably do this. Unconscious. The ref flies in waving, and Adonis spits his mouthpiece out and heads to the corner. Ref in Spanish. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Adonis looks on and starts biting at his glove to take it off. This is a different piece of action here. The ref walks over and pulls $500 out of his pocket, hands it to Adonis right there. So from a story perspective, nothing has changed. In fact, we've created bloat, and this scene that was less than a page is now over a page long. Is it over a minute long on screen? Yes. Is it probably closer to the 1-to-1 ratio of page to screen time? Probably. Is it easier on the eyes to scan down the page? Absolutely. We have taken the chunks out and replaced it with action. Wham, wham, wham. We've replaced it with short slugs, so we know where we are. I would say here, interior ring. I'd say interior ring. And this doesn't even have a time of day. I mean, you're going to get dinged on this. I'd say, interior boxing ring, middle of the ring, night. And then if I had to, I'd say super or superimpose Tijuana, Mexico. In a spec script or competition script, this is probably safer than what Coogler actually had on the page. One final thing I'll say about this page, this scene, is that I think sometimes writers get a little bit too caught up in the show don't tell rule, right? Where you can't write emotions, you can't write what people are feeling. It's just whatever you can see on screen, that's the only thing that you should be writing. In a general sense, sure, yes, you should be very aware of that, especially when you're in a dialogue scene or two people are emoting. You don't want to say, so-and-so feels jealous, because how are you supposed to see that on the screen? But for action, it's way more efficient to put a few things in, like Adonis has a bounce in his step, or Flores is growing tired. I think that those kind of beats are really important to sell the character aspect of an action scene that has no dialogue. So don't be so strict on yourself when you're writing that you just sanitize the page so much that your voice gets lost. This is just one way that you can write action. In my next video, I'll show you another man-on-man fight that's a completely different style. And what you'll notice is that some things are consistent, but the style changes. And so you can still respect screenplay architecture, and you can still respect the formatting and white space rules and everything that modern readers expect without sacrificing that thing that makes you, you, and that makes your work, your work. So I hope that this was helpful and educational. I hope you come back for the next video. So until next page, I'm Matt Weiner, and this is Fade In, a channel dedicated to the art of screenwriting.